Because if it's an issue for you and you know the industry well, you know how to solve it, there's a good chance it's an issue for other people. And everything from there is going to be easy because you already know what you need to do. You just need to figure out the steps.
What we need to do.
Focus boss.
Yesterday we got our first paying customer.
But I was thinking maybe we could do like...
How do you know like what's a big story?
We get access to their analytics. Is there a way to... We're playing the game, so if there's ads, we're gonna run ads.
Yes, we need to learn out because kind of customizer related work.
And it can help us grow.
Hello and welcome back to Online Biz TV. I am Ruth.
And I'm Eric.
And in this video, we want to share with you how we created our over 100K a month business without really knowing what we're doing. So we have a SaaS business. We develop apps for e-commerce. And when we started out, we didn't really know anything about SaaS or about developing an app. And neither of us is a developer. We were lacking a lot of technical skills. The list of things we didn't know how to do was pretty long. But we made it work, and honestly, we're really enjoying working on this business and it keeps growing. So we wanted to share our story with you guys, let you know how we got started and how you can do it even if you don't have the business experience. So just to get started, Eric, could you tell a little bit about your background before we actually got started with our business, what you did before that?
Yeah, of course. The thing is, I actually have some experience with e-commerce. My e-commerce journey started back in the end of 2015, when me and my previous partner decided to open a dropshipping store. And it's been a very long and tedious journey. The first store actually failed. It took us 2 years to understand that we failed and it's time to move on. The second store actually worked well and we grew pretty fast from nothing to about $200,000 in sales per month. Again, this is e-commerce, not SaaS, so the profit margin were slim to none. And eventually after a while doing e-commerce, I've been so familiar with Shopify and with the ecosystem and with what merchants need because I was a merchant. I knew some of the things that were missing back in the day in Shopify. And you started your own thing, so I offered you to maybe build something together for merchants. But the story of how we got to this decision, that's a different story, and maybe you can share on your like what happened with you at the time, like before building Steel Drops.
Yeah, so by the way, I kind of forgot to say that, but we're brothers, and you guys can guess in the comments who's the oldest. We love seeing people guess that. But when I was before we started working together, I used to work in high tech for a lot of years. I did some IT management, some project management, but I learned development way back, but I never actually became a developer. So I don't remember how to write even one line of code. I don't really know anything about it. And I worked in high tech, and I remember like I was really unhappy with my job and I couldn't figure out why and what it is I wanted to do. And then right about this time when I was thinking about leaving, I remember you were starting to really succeed in your store, and I was like suddenly seeing it as something that is more possible. And the funny thing is, it's not the fact that you succeeded that made it seem possible, it's the fact that you succeeded because you made things simpler. Like you had a really complex business model and then you changed it into a really simple one and suddenly you succeeded. And I was like, wait, I don't have to reinvent the wheel. I can do something simple and still succeed. And that really pushed me to leave my job and try out something different. And I opened an e-commerce store. The first one was just like to play around, and I got some sales in it. And then I opened something a little more serious with one of our cousins actually. And it started going well. Like it started making money slowly, really slowly. But then things didn't really work out in that store. And then you came to me, and at the beginning we were like, yeah, let's do a store together. And then the story is that Eric, that's the English name that we use here. So Eric actually... Internationally. He met up with some friends from Lux, which is a review app for Shopify. And he made up with them to talk to them as a merchant, to give them some of his insights and to hear what they had to say. And I remember you just came out of there and you called me and you were like, we're developing an app for Shopify. Like, just talking to them and how it works for them, I think made you realize how much potential there is in actually developing an app.
Yeah, I think when I back in the day when I was still a merchant, I was still fascinated with all the new apps that coming out to the market, and I always like to explore and always be ahead of the market. Whenever there's a new technology coming out, I try to implement it on my store and get better results from it. And when I realized by accident that the review app we used, Lux, are an Israeli company, they invited me into their offices, and then when I spoke to Yoni, one of the co-founders, I just realized suddenly that whatever they did had all the advantages of running a store and more, and none of the disadvantages. So anything from the profit margins that are much higher to the recurring revenue, and the fact that, like, one thing that did fascinate me is that you can solve a problem with software. If you do it right, you need to only solve a problem once.
Yeah.
If it comes back again and again and again. Like with e-commerce, for example, people will ask you, where is my order? No matter what you do, no matter how much you try to automate it.
You can't get rid of this kind of ticket.
Yeah, I mean, you can maybe get better results, but there is no way it's going to disappear.
Yeah.
There's always going to be someone who's going to just completely ignore all the signs and help options you're going to put on your website, and they're going to reach out to your support and ask, where is my order? And when you scale up, that's a big problem. And with SaaS, if you have a software and there's a question coming up a lot, you can always find a way to automate it so that the next time it's just going to disappear.
Yeah.
So that's one of the thing that fascinated me. And after I heard some of Lux's insights and what's going on with their business, I had so many ideas in my mind of things that are still not developed for Shopify, and then we decided to just go for it together.
Yeah, so that actually leads me to the next question I had, which is, what do you feel like were the things in your past experience before we started Stealio Apps, before we started developing apps, that helped you succeed in that? Like, what in your past experience was useful for that?
All right, there are a lot of things you say that could have, like a lot of past experiences that could have helped. I mean, being in the army, a tank commander, so just managing stuff, managing people.
Yeah.
And obviously the one big thing that helped is just knowing the ecosystem and knowing the industry.
Yeah.
So I think if you want to build something, the number one tip I'd give is just do something from your own world, and don't explore things that seems cool to you but you don't know very well. It's highly recommended, just look inside, find something, a field that you're either familiar with or experiencing on a daily basis, and find the issues there. Because if it's an issue for you and you know the industry well, you know how to solve it, it's probably, there's a good chance it's an issue for other people. And everything from there is going to be easy.
Yeah.
Because you already know what you need to do, you just need to figure out the steps.
Yeah, so it's basically really all about finding the right niche, and the right niche is one that you are familiar with and you see potential with. So I really like this point. I think for me, like, because I had a Shopify store as well, I also had some familiarity with the niche, with Shopify, not as much as you. I mean, you were on it for years and you had a Shopify Plus store, so that's a different level of experience, I think. I mean, you managed people on top of Shopify. I never got to that point. I was like a single seller. So we had both points of views, I guess. And for me, like, one of the things that I feel like helped me a lot is my experience with project management and a little bit of product management. Like that wasn't my job, but I did get to do that a little bit. But I agree with you that like having management experience really helps, whatever it is, managing people, managing projects. And obviously the fact that I came from the high-tech world, I wasn't the most technical person. I was mostly a manager, but I still knew some things that like about servers and about code, that if you really come in with a completely blank sheet, it could be way more difficult to get into. That being said, I think technicality is actually the biggest gap in knowledge that we both had. So when we started a company that is a technical company, without knowing how to write code, without really knowing how to manage servers, how to do any of that, I think that was our biggest challenge. But I'd like to hear what you think about like what actually were our biggest challenges and gaps in knowledge when we first started out.
Yeah, so again, we still don't know how to write code.
Yeah, we never learned.
That didn't change. And still every time you talk about anything related to servers, it just shut my brain down and I can't handle it most of the time. Now, that said, if you are a developer, I think that's the best opening point for anyone who wants to run a SaaS business or a software service or just build an app. But if you don't have that, that's not a must. And I do think that at the beginning, it was very tempting to just find a technical guy to run with us and split the profits and split the company earnings. But when I thought about it a little bit deeply, I just realized that eventually there is a job around the world for anything you're trying to achieve. So you tend to think that if someone is not going to be your partner, is not going to be willing to work for you because he's going to do his own thing. And that's just not the case. There are plenty of app developers and how do you call it? Dev operations, CTOs out there that are willing to work for a monthly paycheck.
That want to be employees. They don't even...
Yeah, either they want it or they don't want to take any risks at the moment. So when you're just starting out and you have nothing to offer except for a salary, that's a good opening point. So that's, I think, one of the first gaps we had. Pretty much, I think back in the day, that was the main thing. Yeah, but I really don't know why in my mind it seems like something pretty, the process in my mind, seemed pretty easy, and that's something I guess we're gonna talk about in a few minutes, but that's just, in my mind, was the biggest thing.
So I think there's a saying about how sometimes when you don't know anything about a field, it seems easier than when you know a little bit about it. So when you know a little bit about something, you know how much you don't know. And I feel like that was the difference between the two of us when we started out. You were never like a part of this world of development, really, whatever it includes. And I was, and I knew how much we didn't know. Like I had in my mind how complex it could get, and that scared me. And in my mind, startups are like these complex small companies where you collect highly talented people and work on something that no one has done before. And then you go and get capital, you get investments, and then you have to do an exit. And after you finish, you have a lot of money, but then you have to do it all over again. And the whole process, even when I'm saying it now, sounds like
scary,
exhausting and scary. And such high risk. And when we started working together on the app, I don't think either of us treated it as a startup. It was just like, we're building an app for Shopify. And it's the fact that you were so confident about, we can find the right people to do that. We can hire the people that we need. Really helped me too, because I was not as confident about that. I was like, I hope we find a good developer. I hope we find a CTO. But eventually we did find the people, and what you learn as you go is that when you start, you don't have to find the best people. You can switch if it doesn't work out, even though we found amazing developers.
And you can find one person at a time. You don't have to bring the entire team up. So if you just, again, break everything down and simplify simplify things. You just need to always take the next step. What do I need right now? And
Exactly.
you can always even be delayed. Sometimes, I mean, we had some growth pain when the app used to crash, because that was the time when our databases got overloaded with data, and we
we had
didn't
a lot of
optimize the
traffic.
code, and
Yeah.
there were a lot of things we didn't know back in the day. But when it happened, we realized now it's the next step to bring in a DevOps manager
Yeah.
or anything like that. Now, and I remember, I think the reason I thought it was so simple at the beginning is when I looked at the App Store and I saw that back in the day there were about 2,000 apps. Right now there are a little over 4,000. I thought to myself, 2,000 people already built an app for Shopify from scratch and had it running. So if we could find someone who did that and get him to work for us, then we got everything we need.
Yeah.
There's nothing else.
Yeah.
That's all we need. So that's what we did eventually. We searched we searched Fiverr and Upwork and a few different platforms for developer, and
Freelancers.
one of the demands for someone who can be a good fit for the job was someone who already developed apps, public apps on the App
Shopify.
Store, and that are active. We asked for links so we can actually check out their apps and decide if it's complex enough and built well enough, then there is no reason they cannot generate our product from thin air.
Yeah, exactly. And so when you look at the process that we went through to actually get started with our main app, Reconvert, and with the business, I think you kind of started talking about it, but let's try to look at it as a process in a way that maybe if anyone listening wants to do something similar, they can say, oh, okay, that's what they did. So we started off with really knowing our niche by being merchants ourselves, and then we went on to really, as you mentioned, find developers that could do the work. What would you say, if you had to really look at it as a step-by-step process,
Yeah.
what are the steps?
All right, so there are a lot of sub-steps.
Yeah.
So it's not like one big thing, but if we want to simplify it, first of all, you need to find the niche you want to work with. Again, it's so much better if you're leaving the industry. That's so much better. And then you need just look at the things you do day to day and start every time. You need to start looking at small things that are not working right as problems.
Yeah.
And you want to list all those problems down. And over time, you're going to generate a list. Over a week or a month, you're going to start having this big list. And then you want to start ranking those ideas by a few different factors. So the way we looked at it back in the day was how complex it is, what's the potential for loyalty, so how hard it's going to be to switch between our solution and others, what's the percentages of users that we're going to have, because some solutions are only for a specific type of users and some of them are more general. I'll give you an example. I don't know, Facebook is for everybody, but I don't know, Waze is only for drivers.
Yeah.
That's just a general idea. And if you look at even smaller niche, it's even smaller. So you want to figure out a solution that is for everybody. So that was another. Another thing, I already talked about complexity, I think. What else we had? I think that we had a few others.
We also
but
had a price potential price, how
Yeah,
much we can make out
charge
of it.
for
But
it.
we can really make a whole
yeah,
video
whole
just
it.
about
But basically,
that.
you just
Yeah.
want to rank your ideas, and once you have they get a final score, and then it's not like you must take the one with the highest score, but it's going to give you a direction of what had the most potential, and then once you have that, it's time for you to write a specification document. So that's where you list down everything, and you need to be crucially detailed.
Yeah.
As crucial as you think, the default state of everything, the options of everything, how everything should look, what happens when you hover over something, when you clicked on something, the formation
Yeah.
of links, and everything within the app, what everything should do. If you have formulas, then how you calculate these formulas, and you need to do the research, and you really want to dive as deep as you can and then make it a long document.
Yeah, and that's one thing to add about specification is, of course, it includes mock-ups of the design of what the app actually looks like. And for us, that was really simple because we use Shopify Polaris, which is a library to design your app in a design that fits the Shopify backend. So we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. But if you don't have a design framework, it can be really, really difficult to create any mockup or imagine what the app looks like. So in this case, we didn't have to do that because of Polaris. But in this case, if you really don't have a framework, I would personally recommend hiring a designer to work with you. And then you can create wireframes where you know what the screen needs to have, and the designer can it's kind of like the wireframe is the body, and then the designer dresses it up with clothes, with the colors and how everything looks.
Yeah, and you can use tools like Figma or Balsamiq just to create the wireframes. Also, I think there are a lot of pre-built frameworks you can work with. Like you can build,
that's true.
Buy pre-made. I don't know how to call it, like pre-made UI UX kits, and just work with them. It's gonna make things a little bit easier if you don't have anyone who can design. And maybe at the beginning that's not something you want to do if you don't have enough money to start. So it's better to start with something basic. So I think after you have the specification document, and it's going to be like, you better think 5 years to the future at least, and spill everything down. And the next thing you'd like to do is just to find your developer. Again, this is assuming you're not a technical person, you don't know how to develop. Search for someone who build similar products to what you're trying to achieve. And
who has good communication.
Yeah, good communication. I mean, that's, again, something we can do a whole video about. But once you find the right person, interview him, you want to get as many, like from a few developers, like price estimations or time estimations. And you want to do it per widget, per feature within the app, just so you can later on, and that's the next step, create your MVP. Because again, if you thought 5 years to the future, you don't want to develop it all at once, because then, first of all, if it fails, you spend much more money, and it's just going to take much more time to develop. And there's a good chance you don't have the budget. I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, we used to think in hours, like development hours, terms in everything. So we used to, and this is why, by the way, we didn't launch our first app with, it was very, very thin app at the beginning. Our best features were not even developed yet.
So I think when we talk about MVP, it's really important to, your goal when you're starting out, when you create the first thing you ever create and you don't have a lot of budget, is to go to market as soon as possible. And the only way to do that is by having a very lean MVP. And that's something we tried to be as lean as possible when we started out. In retrospect, I think there are a lot of things we gave up on that we should have done in the beginning, and then a lot of things that we kept in that are not that important, and we kind of wasted development hours on them. So you can always take something out. It's kind of like a stylist would tell you that when you leave home, take something off you before you leave. Same thing for your MVP. So whenever you create your specification, you get your time estimation from your developer. If it's too high for you, you don't need to worry, because for sure you can take something out. Try to make your MVP as lean as possible. Go to market, even if the app doesn't have quite the market fit. Like if there are important features missing, that's okay. It's better to go out and start marketing and getting people in when you're missing features than to wait 6 months and just then go out.
I think, and there's something like there, for two reasons this is important. First of all, if you go to market first, you can finally start generating money, which is important if you want to keep the business going. And then the second thing is that your audience, your customers, will reshape your roadmap in a way that you didn't realize.
That's true.
Your priority is probably a little bit different than what the massive amount of customers will need. So if you can hear them, you can give them what they need, and then you can fit more customers, and then you hear more customers, then give them what you need, and eventually your product gets wider and wider and fit more customers. Like when we, what we thought the app would be at the beginning, ended up being something a little bit different than what we expected. We noticed that the terminology of customers and what they were looking for from the app was different than what we intended it to be initially.
Yeah, I think for eConvert, when it comes to the actual features of the app, we were kind of pretty spot on. I mean, we didn't know exactly what would be most important to customers, what they would want to get first, but we did get the right idea about the features. But when it comes to marketing and branding the app, like you said, the terminology, completely different. And if we waited, I don't know, 2 more months, it would just have meant that for 2 more months, we wouldn't have known that we need to switch up our marketing so that it works for our customers. It's just a waste of time and money. And with eConvert, what happened? We developed the app, and we ran out of money, and we basically told our developers, listen, now we're going to try to launch the app, and we're going to have to take a month or 2 of a break because we can't really pay for more development, even though there were a lot of things we wanted to do. And then I think we ended up taking maybe 2 weeks off, and then the app started making money, and we were like, okay, we can go back to developing, and we just went full on into development again.
Yeah, we assumed there was going to be money generated, because actually, I don't know if you remember, but back in the day, it took 60 days since install to the first payment from a customer. So we kept developing and kind of counted of the money to start generating.
Yeah, it was risky, but I think when you work like that, when you make it very incremental, you lower the risk. Like if you go and build something that is huge from scratch with no experience, I mean, chances are you're going to fail, not because you suck, but because you lack the skill set. A lot of things we know now, we didn't know back then, but when you do it slowly, when you don't try to reach the stars on your first try, you learn the skill set, and you can move on to more complex stuff, and you can move on to bigger customer bases. We felt it, like you mentioned.
The entire company just kind of evolve as you grow, because you don't have a choice. It's not, again, when you just always take one step forward, and you see that you start getting more customer than you can handle alone, then it's time to bring in a customer service rep. So you just hire that one person, and then at the beginning probably is going to use the software you used, and then you need a little more advanced software for support, because again, you want to handle, give the better experience for the customers. And then you need another developer because you want to move forward to just advance and keep a better distance from the competition. And maybe you hire a marketing guy. Again, depends on your needs. And then you need, you must hire an accountant, and then you need a lawyer. But all these things happen slowly. It's not you don't have to do it all in once. Yeah. Now we're at a place where we're managing around, I think, 12, 13 people. And the company slowly grows just because, again, we are always keeping our foot we only look one step further. We don't, I mean, you do need to plan ahead, but you always do what you need to do at the same time.
You need to look at the macro and plan ahead and be aware of where you want to get. But if you focus on that, it feels overwhelming. So you have to focus on the small things. I think every goal in life, not just business, but everything you want to do, if you focus on the big goal, that gives you motivation. But if you want to actually get there, you have to focus on the day-to-day steps. So it's the same thing. You have to finish the specification, get a developer, finish this one small feature, test it. There's a very clear process, so you just have to walk with this process. Yeah. What would you say? Okay, so we talked about creating an MVP.
I want to say, before we even continue about that, and I do think that the one important thing is just to take action. Me and my previous partner were always joke about the fact that if we knew back in the day, back in 2015, how complex and how crazy and almost overwhelming and impossible it is to open your own business, we'd give up in advance and just go working in some a different job that we wouldn't like. But if you just do the thing that you need to do, it doesn't have to feel like this overwhelming thing that is impossible to manage.
That's funny, because with Stereo Apps, with app development, I feel like we didn't get the same experience. We didn't get the same hardship. It felt easy in the beginning. Now I think we are moving forward to things that are a little harder to do, but still, like if you asked me a year after creating this company, would I have done it if I knew how hard it would be? I would have said yes, because it wasn't that hard. I felt like things just slot into place, and some of it is past experience and work we did before we even got to that. But it's really interesting. I feel like all of these processes that you go through, little failures in your career, in businesses that you try to make, they all build up for you to actually like have the skill sets to succeed in something, the one thing that you succeed in. And that for us was Steady Apps and Reconvert. Okay, so we talked about MVP. What is the next step till you have an MVP?
Yeah, I think the next step is just to launch your app and...
So you need to develop it first.
Oh yeah, of course. But I don't see a reason to talk too much about the development process with the developers. You just need to maintain communication all the time and make sure that things like, there's going to be a lot of back and forth. They're going to give you something to test. It's not going to be as well as you planned, because again, you don't think like the developer doesn't think like you. He doesn't know the market as well as you. So you need to be very specific, hence the specification document. But again, no matter how specific you are, it's not going to be specific enough. So this back and forth is going to happen. Once the MVP is pretty much ready, then it's time.
Yeah, so before we talk about launch, in the development, there are some things that I think you need to focus on. Like what you said about being specific is really true. Never assume like some things that the developers are going to do are going to look stupid to you. It's not that they're stupid, it's for the developer, the app is so clear and he knows exactly what everything does that he doesn't think that something he does is not clear for the customer. Like he doesn't see it from the point of view of the customer because he's so in it. So you always have to redirect him to make sure things are comfortable. And I think sometimes it's easy to tell your developer, oh, okay, that's not what I mean, but it's good enough. Don't do that. Like, if it's not what you meant, make sure it is what you meant so that it fits your needs. And another thing is testing. You have to always test everything at least once. Like, developers do their testing, never count on that, because even after testing, significant bugs can still appear. So you might say, oh, my developer tested it, it works. That's just, you always need to do testing for anything new that you release. So it's really important. You yourself need to like test it. Make sure your app works the way you want it to work. And then let's talk about launch.
Yeah, again, once you have the MVP ready, then it's time to launch your app. Again, we launched our app through Shopify. We mostly counted on getting traffic from the App Store, but you can look other ways. I mean, when you do that, we have to pay Shopify 20% commission of everything we make, so it's not ideal for everybody, and not everybody wants to give up this significant part of revenue. And so you need to, if you are planning on launching somewhere, you can either do product hunt or different platforms. And again, we're assuming e-commerce. You can also launch it to if it's an app, you can launch it on the Android store or iOS. Again, it really depends on your market and what you're aiming to get. Yeah,
it also depends if it's like a B2B thing. We do B2B. If you do B2C, maybe it's I don't know, either on the Android or Apple App Store, or maybe like just run some ads on Facebook, on Instagram, on Google. There's a lot of ways to launch.
Yeah, or no, launch is when you go live. I think marketing is the next step after you're live. So I think once you if your app is working and it's online and people can use it, now it's time for you to start thinking like, how can you start using it? For us, I mean, the App Store was the only way to install the app, but if you look at, let's say that you have, I don't know, a software for businesses and it's just a web app and you want to just keep it there, I don't know, for accountants. And let's assume that there's no social platform for accountants, then it's time to move on. Like it's live, but no one is going to get there. It's like an island with no bridges or flights.
So I think that's why I also mentioned ads, because it's similar to people with stores. Sometimes they think they launched it, it's live, people can like type in their domain and get into their app. That's it, work is done. But it's not true. Launching any service, whatever it is, software or physical or any consulting service, you never get traffic out of the blue. So for us, launching on Shopify on the App Store was enough because the App Store gives you traffic. All you have to do is optimize so you get the correct traffic. But in most cases, unless you are on some sort of existing ecosystem, you're not just going to get traffic out of the blue. So when you launch, you have to do some marketing, and it can be like, there are so many different ways. There might be like content marketing that you started way ahead just to get ready and to get the SEO going. It might be paid marketing, and it might be some corporations with other apps and other services. But when you launch, you have to make sure you have a game plan of how you get traffic, of how you get eyes on your service.
Yeah, it's definitely better to start thinking about your marketing plan before you launch. The earliest, the better, because specifically for software and SaaS, there's a good chance the marketing is a part of your app. It's part of your service. If you want to build in an affiliate program or a referral program, or just, I don't know, just display, if it's something visual, then you want to probably put your logo as a watermark, or again, there are multiple things you can do, but obviously once your app is out there, it's time to get people in, and I think these are the two last steps. Get people in, and that's hard, that's not easy. You need to learn marketing. For us, luckily for us, we had some experience, so we were marketers first, and only after then like app developers. And I think the last step is, once you get the traffic in, you start getting those customers, is to keep them there and hear them to make the app better. That's the last
listen to them
part of it. Yeah, and like I think my view of business in general is that every business have three like pillars to it. There is the automation, there is the marketing, there is the product, and there is the support. And if you can get all three of those running, like the engine is automation. If you can get something to work automatically, only then you can expand to the next thing.
That's true.
So if you have all the three, marketing, bringing new customers, running automatically, that's great. And then if you have support, you need to keep it as automatic as possible so you can grow and support more customers. And then the product, the better it is. Again, they three just work together and everything.
I actually love this point. I love how you explained that. I think also automation is not always automation as in like a technical one. Sometimes it's bringing someone in, like bringing a person that can do support instead of you.
Oh yeah, definitely.
It has to be you releasing some bandwidth so that you can focus on more and more things in the business. So I love this point, like it a lot. Let's move on, because I feel like we're talking a while, but we have like 2 more points to talk about. First of all, let's talk about financing, because I don't know if you mentioned that in the beginning. We didn't have any investments. We completely bootstrapped our business. So let's talk about how we financed that, the development.
We just used our own money in the bank, the little we had, and once it was done, we just took some loans. Some may say irresponsible loans, and kind of counted on the business. We just decided to go all in.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's much to expand on that, but I do think that it just...
I think what the things to expand on are how people listening or watching us might be able to do that themselves. So I think some things that we've already mentioned are what helped us finance it. So first of all, working on a very lean MVP and getting a clear estimation of time and money that it would cost from the developers, and then making smart decisions according to our budget.
That's actually a great point. I never thought about it, but I think if you look at the key takeaway you can take from our budgeting is, do not adjust your budget to the product, but adjust the product to your budget.
Exactly.
And I see so many startups, businesses are trying to do the other way. They just need this outrageous amount of budget to begin, and they, instead of just starting with something lean, they just search out for investments and,
Yeah.
more complex.
I agree with you. And then like the next point, which is something that I just thought about because of what you said, is to do whatever you can do yourself. So we couldn't develop it ourselves, so we hired people. But we could market mostly market and do product ourselves and do support ourselves. So in the beginning, now we have a support team. Now we're looking for people to help us do products so we can work on a few projects at the same time. But in the beginning, we did everything other than development. Seriously, like everything. We answered customers and we built our own website. I even built our servers, even though I had no idea what I was doing. We did the marketing.
We learned Photoshop to do some of the mock-ups and slowly
And we did the
acquire
help
more.
videos, very low quality, and we edited everything ourselves. And I think sometimes people are afraid of what they don't know how to do, so they look for people to pay to do that. And then you waste your important money. Like you have to make sure that the money that you do have goes to the most important thing in your business, the thing that will move you forward.
The core.
And the rest of it, just do it yourself. Everything you can do yourself.
Yeah, that's a great point.
And lastly,
be willing to work hard. Let's
be
say
willing to work hard. Definitely.
It was hard.
Yeah.
I don't want to say it, but it was hard as fuck.
Yeah.
And we kept working like it was just full days of work, 16 hours a day, just working, grinding it out, and doing everything we can so that the money can go to development. And I think if you compare it to e-commerce, I'd say exact same thing. Do everything on your own and only spend on marketing so you can start getting traffic.
Yeah, but even when you talk about spending on marketing, it's important to make the distinction because for some people, spending on marketing is hiring someone to do your marketing. That's not what you mean.
No, that's not the case. Learn marketing.
Yeah,
and not
exactly.
only that, too many people in terms of marketing thinking that, okay, if I spend X, eventually I'm going to get Y. No,
It doesn't
you need
work.
to learn how to
do
market
it.
and make it efficient.
And also, I just want to make sure we stress that we're not against hiring a designer to do your logo and your website or a marketer to do your marketing. We're not against those things. But in the beginning, if you want to bootstrap your business and you don't have the money for that, you have to learn how to do them yourself. It will also help you once you bring people in to make sure you bring the right people in and you know what you're looking for because you know the field at least a little bit. And then later on, you bring people who are better than you at it so that they can do it really good once you have the money. My last point is when it comes to bootstrapping, to kind of make sacrifices. Like I lived at our parents' home for 2 years. You lived there for I don't know how long,
I don't know.
6 months or something. But I quit my job. I didn't have any money. I used whatever money. I did have money, but I used it directly to the business. I didn't really spend anything. So you have to be willing to. I didn't expect it to take 2 years. So that's my point. I didn't expect it to take 2 years until I could get a salary again, but you have to be willing to do the grind long term. You have to be willing to manage with no salary for a long time and make sure you have the system to support you doing that. And if you don't, then maybe you'll have to go and do some part-time job just to pay for your living expenses, which is okay.
It's always a good idea, but I'll just touch on it a little bit. That's, I think, something for a whole different conversation. But basically, if you need to do that, go out, just work for someone else for 8 hours a day, make enough money for you to pay your rent, and then in the 8 hours you still have left in the day that you're not sleeping, go home and work on your own stuff. And that's okay. You just need to be willing to give out 16 hours a day for a few years until your thing take off, and then you can devote yourself to it and get these outcomes you expect.
Unless you can afford it to yourself to not work, which would just make it faster because you have more hours in the day to work on your business.
Assuming you can, but if you can't, again, there is still a way to get it done. You just need to work harder and you need to accept that.
That's true. That's true. But you need to accept it, and you need to accept the fact that it's not going to be like a 1 month or 2 month effort. It's going to take a while. Sometimes it's going to be short, but in most cases it's going to take a while. So you need to be patient.
Yeah.
Okay, so the last point, last question is, what is your number one tip to anyone wanting to start a business, to bootstrap their own business?
That's a hard question. There's
It
so
is.
many. My number one tip. Again, I think maybe just make it simple.
Yeah.
Don't make it complex. Don't try to invent the wheel. Just do what other people already done, and always keep one foot in front of the other, and that's how you move forward. And another like mantra that I always have in my mind when it comes to business is, the only way to quit is to give up. Otherwise, you're just acquiring more data and more information, and you grow smarter, and you have more capabilities to grow your business. And if you do give up ever and you fail, you basically take all the time, all the effort, and all the work you've put into it and multiply it by 0. And you never know how close you are for a breakthrough.
Yeah.
So just don't do that. Don't do that, all right? Keep going, find a way. If you need to, pivot a little bit, that's fine, but don't just give up and go back to what you did previously.
So I agree with both.
That's a dark way to go.
Yeah, so I agree with both of these points. I was actually going to say that the only way to really fail is if you give up. So that doesn't mean that you run headstrong into the same idea and fail again and again and never look to the sides. You do need to show some flexibility and learn. So I think that's the only thing I would add to that. You can't just do the same thing and expect a different result. You have to figure out why you're failing, what needs to change, and change it. But other than that, keep it as simple as possible, because you probably, if you're a first timer, you don't have the skill set to manage like a huge team making billions of dollars. It's not the case. So you have to take it slow, learn, and just do something that I think that you feel passionate about, because it's going to take a lot of work. So it needs to be something you can enjoy.
Yeah, Apple started in a garage.
Yeah.
Just one step ahead of the other, that's it.
That's true. Yeah. So we finished with the cliche of every startup starts in the garage. We started in our parents' attic.
In the rooftop, actually.
In the attic, yeah.
Attic, yeah.
So, I think that's it. I'm really glad that we talked about it, because I think, it's nice to look back on the process that we've gone through, and I hope that people listening or watching that can actually find themselves at some point in the process that we talked about. And if you guys are thinking of starting something, have started something, maybe have a running business succeeding in a similar model, bootstrapping, maybe you did something differently than us, we would love to hear it. We really enjoy connecting with other people's journeys and other people who do similar stuff to us or different stuff from us. We just want to learn about entrepreneurs, honestly. So if you have anything to add to the conversation, just let us know in the comments. We would love to hear from you. And if you haven't yet, you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel and hit the bell notification so you never miss our videos. And if you're listening to this, subscribe on the podcast platform that you are listening in. We will talk to you in the next video/podcast episode. Have a great day until then.
Bye.